I just feel like I've let my kids down, because that's what an eating disorder wants to do. It's divide and conquer. I had no concept of what this was. It falls into the spectrum of autism, and unfortunately she turned towards alcohol to help her through her journey. And unfortunately our youngest, to cope with the voices, she turned to meth.
You see your kids doing that. What goes through your head at the time?
I don't know where to start with my story, because my eldest developed an eating disorder at the age of 16.
My daughter actually had bulimia for 2 or 3 years, and sit around the family dinner table, eating, everything was good. For me, I look at this and go, how did I miss that?
You've got to fix yourself before you can help anyone else. My wife and I started our charity NDeD. We saw that Australia did not have a residential for eating disorders. And then we come across this local philanthropist, and he said, take a seat. It's not about the 2 million. I said, what do you mean? He said, we're about to announce 70 million. So I just feel privileged to be on this journey. It's really changed my life. It's changed who I am and what I am.
How would you say you create the life you want and leave a legacy that you're proud of?
The hardest thing is to...
Welcome to the Tomorrow is Not Today podcast. Today, you definitely want to keep watching or listening, however you're doing this at the moment. I've got a guest on who is doing something that hasn't been done in Australia before, talking about a topic that's very, very personal to him for a very, very good reason. And it's something that we were just chatting before we got on. It's something that is either we think we know something about it, or else we have completely the wrong ideas about it. And so I know there's a massive, massive amount of people who deal with this. So buckle up. Might want a few tissues along the way as well, but I'm excited. Mark, thank you very much for joining us on the podcast today.
Kingsley, it's my pleasure, and thanks for the invite.
So, Mark, initially, first off, let's tell people a little bit about who you are and what you're actually doing to help people.
Thank you. Yes. My wife and I started our charity NDeD over 10 years ago now. And we saw that Australia did not have a residential for eating disorders. So we'll get into this later, but we've actually staged it. Stage one was to create and build Australia's first residential for eating disorders, which we did a number of years ago. Butterfly Foundation now operate it. Stage two was to create a step up, step down day program centre, which we have done and established that years ago. Stage three was to provide a short-term accommodation village, so people wanting support, needing support from our day program centre can actually stay somewhere very economically, and then access our day program, which is directly across the road from the village. So as of April the 1st, all those three stages are complete. So it's probably a world first, really, not just an Australian first, in the model that we've created. So we're very proud and excited about it.
And later on, we're going to put in the show note links and things like that where people can go and actually see what you've done. I guess this come to my attention through a friend of mine, and I had preconceived ideas on what these eating disorders and things were all about and how they worked, and I just couldn't understand why people couldn't get through it. And that was my pure naivety until you actually speak with somebody who's dealt with it and they can explain things that sort of just don't kind of make sense to a person who's not dealt with it. And I guess part of this podcast today is I want people to understand a little bit better that we got to get out of ourselves and our own preconceived ideas and into what reality is for a whole bunch of people who you are helping in absolutely incredible ways. So let's dive into why you're actually doing this in the first place.
Yeah, so it takes us back through our own personal journey with two of our daughters. My wife and I have 5 children between us. I had 4 children from my first marriage. My wife had 1 from her first. And my eldest developed an eating disorder at the age of 16. And way back then, she's now 46. So way back then, I had no concept of what this was. You know, was it a teenage journey that most young women go on? It was beyond me. And I tried to find help, but back then there was very little available at all. So we journeyed as best we could. Unfortunately, somebody with a long-term eating disorder generally brings in something else to help them cope. And with our eldest, it was she turned towards alcohol to help her through her journey. Our youngest, from my wife's first marriage, she was 5 when she came into my life. She's now 32, but she developed an eating disorder at 14, so they weren't related, but it was the universe. The second time around, I thought, well, here's the universe, giving me a kick up the arse and just saying, well, go and do something about this, instead of scratching your head and talking about it. So, and unfortunately, our youngest, to cope with the voices, she turned to meth. So it's been a hell of a journey all round from a lot of areas, but they have been the drivers for us to make change. That's for sure.
Tell me a little bit about, because obviously there's like lots of ideas as to where it comes from and why it's there and that sort of thing. With all of the work that you're doing and the professionals, which we'll get into later on, that you have around your life, your organisation right now, can you enlighten us a little bit about where the need for this comes from, for lack of a better word?
Yeah, look, it is genetic based. It falls into the spectrum of autism, and unfortunately, how we found out about this. We had our youngest tested by a GP in Brisbane a long time ago, and she proved positive to an MTHFR gene, which predisposes you to an eating disorder or disordered eating. And it does that because it stops, if you've got that gene structure, then the food you eat, your body doesn't automatically process the folate from the food. And the folate is the serotonin release feel good in your stomach. So they're missing out on that feel good from the stomach, which is your second brain. So then you can artificially stimulate that. But the trick is if you have an eating disorder, especially bulimia, you can take that supplements, but then you're bringing it back up again. So it was one thing to know how that happened. It was another thing to try and work around that. But we've been recently, over the last number of years, we've been working with the North Carolina University. They started a world first study on the genetic makeup of an eating disorder. And they identified 8 other genomes that work together to create this issue. And then the Berghofer University just last year, in conjunction with North Carolina University and us and other organisations like us in Australia, they're now taking that to the next level. So when that's finished, the world will have a complete genome structure on what it is and how we can best handle it and work with it. So it's an interesting journey. So when parents and carers ring me or any of our team, and they initially start by going, I don't know where to start with my story because I just feel like I've let my kids down. There's a lot of shame and guilt there, and I automatically go, look, I'll just stop you there. I'll tell you a little bit about our journey, and I'll also tell you that it's fair chance you're dealing with a genetic structure here that was out of your control. So if you think back in your family, auntie or your grandma or uncle, and 9 times out of 10, someone will go, oh, actually, now you mention that, I do know grandma had a problem with food or had a problem with anxiety, high anxiety, depression. Then you can say, well, stop beating yourself up then. Take that load off your shoulders. It was sitting there and it was something that triggered it. And that something can be, and divorce is a stressful thing for a young family. So divorce can trigger that structure into play, but it can be sounds simple to us, but it's not to a young person. Bullying at school, just being a kid being bullied, because generally, there's two sorts of makeups, isn't there? There's somebody who starts to get bullied and go, listen, you're not bothering me. This doesn't impact me. Just leave it at that. Or it's the other person who takes it on board and doesn't say anything and takes it on board, and that swells inside them and just grows larger and larger and they feel their world's slipping out of control. The one thing they can control is the intake of food and their body. So that's where it starts. And it's a very slippery slope.
So that was really interesting because I hadn't heard it put like that before. And I'm learning a lot about this at the moment myself, which I'm glad I am. It sounds like, and correct me if this isn't the wrong interpretation, but it sounds like some people have like a genome or something that's sitting pretty much dormant that can actually be activated through some type of trauma or something. Am I catching this right?
Yeah, look, there's an old saying in the field we work in, and it is genetics load the gun, and it's the social that pulls the trigger.
Right.
Yeah, so it can be laying dormant, and something will trigger it into gear. One of the poems that this young lady sent me that we had worked with years ago, she sent me this poem, and unfortunately I've lost it on email. It was a long time ago, but the guts of the poem is, she was driving along in a car one day, beautiful sunny day. There's a good-looking guy on the street trying to hitch a ride. So she backs up and goes, yeah, jump in the back seat. So the guy's in the back seat, they're chatting, and she's going, well, I really like this guy, he gets me. But before I know it, he's sitting in the front seat with me. And we go, oh, I don't know how that happened. But anyway, you're probably the best friend I've got in such a short period of time, because you totally understand me, you get me, I don't have to explain anything. And then next minute, he's in the driver's seat and she's in the passenger seat. And then on it goes until she's in the back seat, he's driving this bus, and she has lost control. So then he has turned from this wonderful boyfriend, into somebody that's trying to end her life, trying to divide her from the rest of the family and take over her life, because that's what an eating disorder wants to do. It's divide and conquer. And that's where a lot of families have problems. And because normally, a male and female handle issues differently. That's a natural way to do it. The eating disorder is a very smart piece of gear, and it can work that out, and it can play on that. Because the eating disorder just wants that person, and that's it.
Wow. So a couple of things you said there is that parents often feel a lot of guilt and shame around this, and also they're trying to know what to do, how to handle it. So can you, and I know I'm asking a lot here, can you take me back to when you first found out about this, what was going through your mind, your thoughts? Because a lot of people think, like you said, what have I done? How's it, what could I have done better? Whatever it is. Take me back to where you found out what was going on, how it affected you personally, your relationship with your wife, your relationship with your kids, how that all developed and evolved.
Yeah, because I've had two sort of journeys with it. The hardest, well, it's hard to say which one was the hardest actually, because the second time around I knew a lot more. But unfortunately, it didn't really help the situation either. It sort of had to play out in a way. But certainly the first time around, as I said earlier, it was a long time ago now, and there was no information about it whatsoever. So, we sussed out what we could. We were living in Brisbane at the time, and found a couple of places, and it was really confronting to go to this one particular house, and it was just young ladies coming and going who you could tell were struggling, and parents who were just so emotionally involved and upset, and a very lonely journey. But our eldest, through that, she has learned to manage it on a daily basis. When you have it for that period of time, you end up managing it, and that's probably the best outcome you can have. She's got her life back together, and she actually works in the space now as well, helping others, which is fantastic to see.
Absolutely.
That circle complete. We're still working with our youngest for that to be achieved. We're raising actually our youngest daughter. She's 8. We've been raising her since she was 8 months, because our daughter's unfortunately trying to fix her own journey. Because you've got to fix yourself. It's like anything like this. You've got to fix yourself before you can help anyone else, and you've got to put yourself first in that situation and concentrate wholly and solely on yourself until you can get to a point where you can manage other things. So it's a very long process. That's been, the journey with us in our life, but because of all the other people our team supports, we now see a lot quicker results. It really depends on the age that you're getting it at, you're capturing it at, and then how long they've had it for. Because the quicker you can nip it in the bud, obviously, the better. But there is rarely a quick fix. It is a road. It's a hard road. And that's what's driven us to create the change in the landscape.
So people who deal with this, what are they thinking? Because it's okay for, someone like me to sit here and go, why don't you just eat? That's, you know what I mean? But that's obviously completely irrelevant to the whole situation. What's going through their minds and their emotions, the thoughts of themselves or at the outside, etc.?
Yeah, I've heard it described as somebody who's horrified with spiders. It's like for them, to walk into a room full of spiders is the worst nightmare they can have. Wow. Someone who the spider is actually food. So somebody who can walk into that room and see this, it triggers everything, and it's their worst nightmare. And I remember, quite often when our youngest was living with us around the dinner table, if she was sitting next to me, she would go, I can't believe you can't hear these voices in my head, because they are screaming at me that loud, and yet you're sitting there and you can't hear them. Makes no sense to me. And, it was hard then you sort of start to grasp how difficult this journey is, because those voices for them are every waking moment. And therefore sleep becomes difficult, and they medicate to try and sleep, and then it becomes this revolving spiral. It's just, gets out of control. But when you understand that these voices are that loud to them, you can understand why they want to try and shut them down, because how do you live with that? We all have those voices to some degree, but in a general life, they're pretty minor. But for these people, it takes over their life, and it is their life, And I suppose that's back to how we named our charity, NDeD. And a lot of people go, NDeD, end eating disorders. That's not how it started. When we had our youngest to a psychologist down in Brisbane a long time ago, she drew a big stick figure on the board and a little one on the inside, and said to our daughter, which one are you? And she said, well, I'm the big one, the eating disorder's inside here. No, it's the other way around. Eating disorder's the big one, you're inside here, and Mum and Dad, we've got to work to turn this around. So your daughter is the big figure, and the eating disorder's still there, but we can manage. And, the psychologist then said to us, do you notice the difference when this big figure's here, present? And you go, oh, yeah, totally. It's like an exorcism. The face changes, the eyes change, the actual jawline changes. It juts forward. It sounds bizarre, but it's a total possession when this big thing's in charge and your child's not there. And throughout that journey, you see less and less of that flash of there's your child. the eating disorder becomes larger and more consistent. So getting back to that, the psychologist said, well, let's give this big fella a name. Let's call him Ed. So we want to try and diminish Ed, or NDeD. And we come home and went, well, we're just starting this charity. Let's try and end this big fella. So that's how the charity name come about. And it's just by chance. People go, oh, NDeD, end eating disorders as well. I suppose it works both ways. But that's how that started. So it made it extremely real for us, because you can then identify this huge figure that's taken over your child. I would hear pots and pans rattling at midnight, and I'd get up to try and challenge what's going on, or sit with, or understand what's going on. Or then, again, you'd all settle down to bed again, and 3 o'clock in the morning, pots and pans are rattling again, and the lights are on and cooking's happening. But straight away whether you're actually wasting your time talking or not, because, I'd go down into the kitchen, and the response I would get, or the visual I would get from my child, I go, oh my God, okay, I'll just have to back out of this, because I'm wasting my time and nothing is being absorbed here. So
as a dad, you see your kids doing that. What goes through your head at the time? Like, how do you deal with, because all you want to do is rescue and save as a dad. That's all you want to do and protect. What's going through your head? How do you deal with that?
Bloody helpless. That's how you feel as a father. You feel like you've failed them. You got me going now, but you just feel helpless, because as a male, you want to jump in and fix things. But I learnt the first time around, you have to bury that male, let's get in there and fix it attitude, because you can't fix it like that. We tried everything with our daughter when she was there. She even came up with the idea. She said, well, how about you padlock the fridge? How about we have dinner, and I'll let you know when I've had enough to eat for the night before I go to bed. And how about then you padlock the fridge and chain the pantry? Okay, your idea, let's try that. And we did. And it worked for a week, maybe 2. But then I heard this commotion one night, went down, and it's broken into it. So we stopped that experiment. And you come at, you just tear your hair out. You just feel so helpless as a parent. You really do. It's a terrible situation. And it's a terrible situation to see this bloody big monster Ed just continually divide and conquer and take over your child's life. It's a terrible position, and that's why I think our charity is so unique, because we are lived experiences as parents and carers, now with our granddaughter as well, and that's been the driver for our charity. All our staff, we employ 7 young ladies who are all lived experience. We don't employ anybody that's not lived experience. That's the prime tick to get in the door. But our ladies are also psychologists, recovery coaches, dietitians, counsellors in their own right, and nurses as well. So they have that professional side to them. But when they meet someone at our charity, they just go, I know where you're at. You don't have to explain yourself. Let's just work together to understand the best way to help you move forward. That lived experience is the key, and that's what we've always based ourselves on.
I think without that lived experience, you're not going to have a clue what's going on, really. You can't.
You won't have the empathy to start with, or the understanding. You have to live it. And it does divide and conquer. The eating disorder divides and conquer your own friendship groups and your own families as adults, because a lot of friends don't want to keep hearing about it, and let's go, oh my God, you can't be serious. It's not still going on, is it? Have you thought about the worst thing? The worst one is when someone goes, have you thought about this? And you go, oh, wow. Do you think? I've been through this journey for a long time now. Do you think you're going to come up with a solution for me? I just need you to stand with me. And you don't have to, you won't understand it unless you journey it, but just stand with me and support me. That's all you want. And even family, they get, rightly so, tired of hearing about it too, because they don't understand it. They don't personally journey it. They see the impact that has on you, but it becomes, you form your own family through this journey, because the people that come your way, adults or carers who come your way, you quickly gain a long-term friendship, because you're taking away the barriers that are normally there when you meet somebody. When you meet somebody, you've got one arm behind your back and you're not showing your full self, generally. And you have to sort people out and try and suss what they're really like. When you meet someone who's been on this journey and unfortunately have lost their child or journeying with their child, all those barriers are gone. They meet you face to face where they're at, where we're at. So you quickly create your own friendships and families through this journey. So there is that upside to it. It's an interesting journey.
You would need that though, because it is a very, we talk to a lot of people who've gone through different traumas and griefs and different things like that on this podcast, but this sounds like it's something unique in and of itself that is very different to anything else that I can see. You would probably be the best person to talk about that, but that's from talking to a whole bunch of people and dealing with a whole bunch of people. This sounds like very unique in how it's made up and how it affects people.
Oh, totally, because it's not just, it's not just, it's because it impacts the whole family. I think that's the hardest thing, because then too you see families with other young children, and we see this quite often, where the siblings start to rebel because they're going, hold on, the focus is all on my sister or my son, my brother. There's no focus on me. So you sometimes see them then acting out another behaviour to try and get the attention. Now, they're not doing it probably on purpose, but they're seeing that that's what it takes to get the parents' attention and focus, and in their eyes, the love and care. Whereas a parent and care, you love and care for them just as much, but they don't see it that way. So then, unfortunately, they quite often act out their own journey. That's why it's so impactful, because no one can escape this bloody thing. It's a beast. It really is a beast.
Can you sort of define a little bit the different, because there's different eating disorders. Can you define the difference and how they work?
Yeah, obviously, we sort of, I suppose, put a cover over the whole thing and call it disordered eating, but sure, there's anorexia, and I've seen young girls who are frightened to sit beside somebody drinking water, because this is the mindset that comes about, because they're thinking that they're going to gain, the molecules are going to come out of her skin, land on mine, and I'm going to absorb this. That's how powerful this mindset can be. So when you understand that too, this is not something they're acting out or putting on. This is their belief sets that have the eating disorders as where it's taken them to. And we notice this we see this in school playgrounds, because we get teachers coming to our organisation. Two of our ladies were just at a local school here earlier this week to talk to grades 5, 6 and 7s, because there's problems in the school grounds. Because if somebody's sitting in a group eating lunch like we used to, which was great fun, there'd be, stealing someone's food or pinches and punches going on here and there. But a lot happens in the school ground now is isolation, because that person doesn't want this person to see either how much they're eating or not eating at all. So they'll take themselves away and either eat or not eat, and the isolation just keeps growing. So there's the anorexia side of it, obviously, and that's the one that most people can relate to or will relate to, because they see an obviously undernourished body and go, oh, eating disorder. But with bulimia, which has been the role for two of our daughters, one of them has floated in and out of a lot of different disordered behaviour patterns. But with bulimia, you could not necessarily pick it. If you said, oh, this person's got an eating disorder, you go, well, she looks healthy or he looks healthy and everything's fine. But bulimia is different, because it's about if they're sitting in the front of a big plate of food, and the eating disorder's in charge, it's like step out of the way, because it is a frenzy. There's no other way to describe it. But then unfortunately, 20 minutes later, it's gone. And then we're looking for food again. So, and the problems arise with that is because the food's in and out, the organs aren't working, aren't needed. So they start to fail. And because it's coming back out with stomach acid, it affects the gums. You got dental problems. One thing with anorexia too that you often notice is because with anorexia, it's a very skeletal form. And, when our youngest was going through that part of it as well, she would put something skimpy on, for instance, and not know that people would necessarily look sideways at her, because she couldn't see what we could see. Her eyes, she used to describe it to us like, the wall of mirrors in the exhibition. You'd go in and you could appear short and dumpy, or tall and very skinny, or whatever. She said, that's the only way I can tell you that what I see in the mirror is not what you see. What I see, even though you could count her ribs, she go, what I can see is fat. And it's again hard to get your head around that what is happening at the pupil is transferring differently to the brain than what it would for us. So and then with anorexia, because the body core temperature starts to shut down, because the body fat isn't there, so the core temperature gets colder. The body starts to, and this is nature at its best, starts to grow fine hair to try and create some warmth to that skin, because the core temperature is dropping. Because you haven't got the food intake, and therefore you haven't got that furnace burning in your stomach that's processing food and getting the blood flowing and the temperature where it should be. So it's extremely complex. And there's all in between. There's all sorts of in between all that. Purging and just chewing food. Biting a bit of food and just chewing it into little balls and then spitting it out. And there's so many different variances to it. It's complex.
It's incredibly complex. And the way that it tricks the mind and the eyes and the whole lot of that is it's just listening to it. It's quite unbelievable how it actually works and how it affects somebody. And that's just hearing the story. That's not living with it. The actual living with it for the person must be hell every day.
Yeah, totally. Living with that and seeing that, some mornings my wife our daughter's bedroom door would be shut, and our wife would go, look, this morning I can't open that door. I just haven't got it. I just don't feel I can handle what I'll find. Can you open the door? So we'd take sounds strange, but we'd take turns at that, because you'd never know what to expect. Whether it's the raging eating disorder, or her heart could stop during the night, and that's a common thing too. because the heart is obviously a muscle, and a malnourished muscle starts to shrink, and the heart's no different. So when it's malnourished, it shrinks. So it's got to beat a hell of a lot faster and more times to keep up. And, you know, a normal test, a test that can be done is if someone's lying down and they get the blood pressure and the heart rate done, and they immediately stand up and do it again. And the difference, that because the heart is malnourished and it's smaller than it should be and it's beating a lot faster, just that laying down, standing up, the difference in there is frightening, what can happen. Wow. And unfortunately, we've known families who have lost their loved ones during the night because simply the heart has stopped.
Is that where what pretty much happens for those who unfortunately do actually pass? Is it pretty much their heart or other organs pretty much, I guess, not functioning anymore?
Yeah, look, generally, and the heart is the biggest issue. Generally, that's the problem. But in saying that too, we're working with families, one in particular at the moment. Unfortunately, suicide is a big factor in this, because there's a lot of reasons why. But if someone who's had an eating disorder for any length, given period of time, in their minds they've tried everything to beat this thing, and sometimes it seems bigger than Ben-Hur, you know. But one of the things too that happens is, and it's happened recently in one particular hospital, which I won't name, but there's been 3 young ladies who have committed suicide with their eating disorders over the last couple of years from this one hospital. And unfortunately, the parents and carers were cut out of the equation, because what happened in this particular case, has been on Current Affair, and this is the parents we are working with now, and they're crying for change. They don't want their daughter's death to be in vain, so they're being a voice for change. But some time back, their daughter had been in and out of this hospital, and one visit, the senior staff at the hospital said, "I think the best treatment for your daughter is to put her on an ITO, an involuntary treatment order." Now, for this couple, it really wasn't explained to them what that really meant. They just explained it like, this is the best medical pathway forward for your child, is to go on an ITO. And of course, as a parent, you go, well, we've tried a lot of other things. If you're saying that this is the best way forward, okay, we'll sign it. So they signed it, not knowing that they just gave away their rights to care for their child.
Wow.
So the child then is in the hospital system. And this child in particular was in there for 9 months. And the parents would come and go, I know my child well enough to know she is slipping backwards here. Let us take her home and work. No, you've signed the ITO, she's under our care. So unfortunately, sad as it is, the hospital did release their daughter back to them, but she'd been on that many medications, and the parents said to the staff, look, okay, great, you're going to release her, but can you wean her off some of the medications before you do? But they said, no, she's coming home. So she got home, and a few days later, she said to her parents, I'm just going to meet a friend up the road. And unfortunately, she walked back to this hospital and got within a few hundred metres of it and threw a rope up over a tree and hung herself. Oh. Basically saying, take that. And her brother found her and had to cut her down, and there was a note for her sister saying, you need to be the voice here for change for me. And so this couple, a very, very strong couple and strong family, we've got to know them pretty quickly. Like I said before, you get to know people pretty quickly when this happens and they're in this world. We're working together to bring change about. And I know this couple went and saw the premiere just last week, David Crisafilli, about it. And where there's a rule in play called the Gillick competency rule. And what happens there is it's a rule that came out of England in the late 90s, and it was around disability. But it's been used as a blanket policy across the world. It's not unique to Australia. But under this Gillick competency rule, look, it's a great rule, don't get me wrong, but it's the misuse of it that causes the problem, which is what we're never going to overturn the Gillick rule, nor do we want to, but we want to put some barriers and guardrails along with it, because a person with an eating disorder generally is high IQ, very well researched on the matter, can talk to it better than I can, and therefore when they get in front of a professional can go, well, I deem you competent to make your own decisions for your treatment moving forward. And if you're telling me you don't want your parents and carers involved, and I deem you competent, then we don't have to involve your parents and carers. So the thing that we are saying there is, okay, that's operating under that rule, which is fine, that's legal, but our loved one's just been diagnosed with a mental health disorder, so therefore you're treating her as being able to make a competent decision about her future when the eating disorder's in charge and talking to you, and my loved one's got a mental health disorder. So we're saying that doesn't really make a lot of sense, because you talk to parents and carers. Look, there are some situations, sure, where it is harmful for that person to be at home. But in 95% of the cases, the parents and carers and families know their loved one better than anyone, of course. And they are an important part of the treatment process. They need to be included. So that's the change we're taking to the Queensland government, and that's a change that this couple and quite a few others, we're working together to bring about some change, where the default position on this is parents and carers and family. That's the default position, until you can prove otherwise, that it's harmful to have them included. So that's sorry, long answer to that question, but there's never a short answer in any of this.
No, that's great, and you brought a lot of clarity about how it actually works, because I want to in a minute go into one of the reasons I know that you started doing the work you're doing right now is because you couldn't find the right treatment anywhere in Australia as such. But before I go there, I want to ask parents who might be seeing something going on and they're just, is there something, is there not something? What would be your suggestion for what they should do?
Look, our team at our House of Hope run on a Thursday night, and this is only relevant to the Sunny Coast, but we do have parents come up from Brisbane for it. They run a parents carers group. So then parents and carers, if they have a sneaking suspicion that something's going on they don't understand, then they can come to our lived experience team and ask any questions they like, and they're not being judged, obviously. But then there's another organisation called EDFA, Eating Disorders Family Australia. They have great parents carers support networks as well, and they do online support. So there are some great organisations out there that parents and carers can reach out to if they have a suspicion that something's going on, and get their head around it, get a better understanding around it. The hardest thing is if someone's, and an eating disorder can be in a house for a couple of years before you even know it's there, especially in a busy family when both parents are working and it's coming and goings, and yeah, if everyone eating their meal, yep, everything's good. Where the person could have snuck the meal away and not eaten it, or eaten that and eaten a hell of a lot more. So it can be in the house for a long time before the parents and carers actually know what's going on. So it is something that's very difficult, but the person with the eating disorder has to own it too, and this is the hard part. Someone with an eating disorder, getting back to the girl in the car, she thought she was in control. So therefore, I haven't got a problem. I'm in control. Yeah, I've got a few things happening here, but that's all right. I've got it. Until the eating disorder's in the driver's seat and she's in the back, and then she realises she's lost control. Eating disorder has total control of her life and where it's taken her. And it's that point then that someone either puts their hand up and goes, I have this issue, I'm ready for help because my life's now out of control. I don't know how to rein it back in. I need help. But to have someone get to that point, that's the difficult part. Because most people, even when their life's out of control, believe they've got it under control. We've seen families who bring their loved ones to our House of Hope. The car pulls up and the person won't get out of the car. But our team celebrates that and they go, I'll jump in the car with you. So they sit in the car with them and go, let's celebrate the fact that you're here. Let's just do that for starters. And then you can see after a while, our team will go, well, would you like to come and explore our gardens? Because we've got this beautiful, peaceful park with bridges, streams, yoga decks, gardens, and all sorts of stuff. So you just take it gentle steps, then you could see them, okay, well, I'll venture out and have a look at the garden. Doesn't mean I'm going to stay or take part in any program. No, it's all right. So you just gently, it's a baby step approach. And this is where we're very different than other approaches because it's very full on, front on. We're very gentle in that approach because it's easy when you finally get someone to own it, that is a celebratory moment. And that needs to be embraced. So it's a brave movement, a brave step for that person to actually put their hand up in the first place. So
it's interesting because, and I know she won't mind me saying this because she actually talks about it quite openly now, but my daughter, and I didn't even know till years after, my daughter actually had bulimia for 2 or 3 years and sit around the family dinner table, eating, everything was good. And like I said, I didn't even know. And hers is tracked back to bullying at school when you look at it. Now, fortunately, she is actually a personal trainer and nutritionist, sports nutritionist, and helps a lot of women with their diet and their exercise and everything, does all that sort of thing. So she's actually turned this around, and actually that's her job now, is helping other people with this, which is fantastic. And she's actually going to come on the podcast and tell a little bit about her story and how she helps people. But I, as a dad, and I'm very close with my kids. I'm very close. But I didn't even know that until years down the track afterwards. Yeah. So I think one of the things is for parents who, if you're not noticing, not seeing and see something come up, try not to feel guilty. Because for me, I look at this and go, how did I miss that?
Yeah.
Really, as close as I am with my kids, how did I actually miss that? And so for parents who might be feeling that way, what would you say?
Yeah, I'd say it doesn't do anybody any good taking on that guilt. You shouldn't take it on in the first place, but taking it on doesn't help the situation either. Research and find out as much information as you can. Get in touch with organisations like ours, like NDeD and others that are around Australia, but do not sit in that seat of guilt and blame, because get back to the genetic makeup. It was there. It was going to happen at some stage. The best thing you can do is embrace it as best you can in a way, and skill yourself up on the knowledge that you're going to need to work with this, because it's difficult too. Like I remember even my father through all this, and like you were saying earlier, just don't get it, and a lot of people see it as, it's just some young person who wants to look the best they can, and they've turned to this to make it happen. It's a lifestyle choice. No, it's who would choose this? Who the hell would choose this as a way to live your life? It's not a choice.
Because from the outside, you don't, and I'm getting a lot of great information even right now talking to you, but you have no idea what's going on in the mind and the body and the brain and the everything else that's happening. You have zero idea about any of that. You have your preconceived ideas as like, okay, yeah, you want to look good or whatever it is, simple like that. But that's all for the most part. Most of us actually understand or know about it. So I want to understand, so people who are overseas who may be watching, listening and needing somewhere to find out a little bit of help somehow or ask some questions, what can they do? And obviously that varies from country to country, but I'm sure you've got some ideas. But also the reason that you actually, or one of the reasons you went so heavily into this is because when you tried to find help in Australia, you didn't find anything that specifically answered the questions or gave the help that was necessary.
No, not at all. And we spent a hell of a lot of money, especially on our youngest, because my wife would be up till 2 a.m. researching around Australia, but also overseas, as to what's available to help, And it's not a cheap exercise, but it never becomes about the money either. It becomes about saving your daughter or your loved one. But a normal program would cost $30,000 a month. That you can find. But we tried a number of those around Australia. We even tried overseas for some of these models that said, yeah, we can fix it all. But they were all saying the same thing, and it took us a long time to educate ourselves and work it out for ourselves. All the centres that we were sending our loved one to, they said, yeah, we can cater for drugs, alcohol, eating disorders, you name it. And we've got all the staff, we've got the team, we can fix it all. We found out the hard way that none of those places worked because food was the thing. For an eating disorder, food is the thing. So they'd walk into a place and here's a smorgasbord of food every day. So there's no one there helping them navigate that. So these places were treating everything the same way, no matter what the condition was. So we quickly realised that you needed, we didn't quickly realise, it took us a long time, but you needed a place that specifically deals only with eating disorders. It is so different. So we looked to the States and found that Carolyn Costin, a wonderful lady, and her partner Bruce, had been doing, again, lived experience lady as to why she started this in the first place in the States. She started a residential model some 35 years ago. And the States, when we started looking, had 40 residentials up and running. And yet here in Australia, we didn't have one. So we thought, well, there's no point reinventing the wheel. So we met up with Caroline and partner Bruce, had a look at the residentials they had, and they were existing homes that they had bought and fashioned into something suitable for a centre. And then now Carolyn's got out of all that, but she's got her own online Carolyn Costin Institute. And you can do recovery coaching courses through the Carolyn Costin Institute online, which some of our team have done. My wife's done it as well. But anyway, we had a look at that and realised that, okay, this is a model that's been tried and proven. So let's just Australianise it, for want of a better word. So we come home and sat with our architects. We luckily got these architects on board and said, we're in this. We won't charge you a cent for whatever it takes. So we sat with them and one of our lived experience team, and we did Zooms with Caroline and Bruce from the States. And we designed this facility that's now called Wandinerida at Mooloola Valley, that is operated by the Butterfly Foundation these days. But that's a 14-bed facility that we designed and built.
Wow.
So we had a design, but we didn't have the property. So I drove around the coast looking at probably 15 different properties, and each one sort of ticked some of the boxes, but not all. And nothing really grabbed me until one day a mate of mine said, well, this is 25 acres at Mooloola Valley. Why don't you have a look at that? I drove up the driveway. I didn't get out of the car. I just went, oh my God, this is it. This is it. It had an old 4-bedroom home on it. but it had a 2,000 square metre horse arena and 25 acres of beautiful land. And I just knew that this was it. So I met the owners, and they were living there, a German couple, and he was pretty gruff. And he said, mate, I'm sick of tire kickers. If you're serious, here's the contract. Sign it now, unconditional, or get off my land. So I signed it unconditional, not subject to anything. And went home and told my wife that what just transpired. So
Wow.
we didn't have the money, so we put our house on the market to so we could secure the property. And it took me a long time to get back in the good books over that one. It wasn't. Luckily, we got a strong marriage. Put it that way.
Yeah.
But anyway, we found the property, but then we needed 4 million to build it, and then luckily our local MP Andrew Wallace, federal MP, LNP were in power at the time. His daughter also was on a journey, and he used to come to our meetings. We started by opening up our house at Bedina to parents and carers on the journey, and Andrew turned up and talked of his journey and what he was doing, and that's how it all started. And everyone's saying the same thing: there isn't a residential. So anyway, Andrew took me to Canberra on a number of occasions, and I got in front of Greg Hunt, Malcolm Turnbull, Scott Morrison, you name it. I was front and centre in their face saying, we need your help. And then Greg Hunt said, yeah, okay, well, yeah, it sounds simple, but in the short version is we'll give you a cheque for 2 million, but we have never dealt with you as a charity before. We've only dealt with the Butterfly Foundation, so you'll need to do a joint venture with the Butterfly Foundation to make this happen. So we just went, if that's what it takes, that's what it takes. So here we have it. We've secured the property. We've got 2 million from the federal government. I rounded up 1 million in kind from local businesses on the coast. I would go to every meeting I could find, tell a story, and 9 times out of 10, I'd walk out with 2 or 3 business cards with people saying, well, I'm a plumber, I'll do the roof for you for free. Or I'm an electrician, I'll do the electrical work. And then we come across this local philanthropist, Roy and Nola Thompson, and they'd lost their niece to anorexia suicide years ago. He heard about the journey, and he's old school, didn't have a mobile phone or laptops or anything. It was post. So I got his address off the mayor, and I posted him. I went physically put it in his postbox, what we're trying to do. And he come back to me and said, look, I'm having a meeting on the coast in a few months. I'll talk to you there. So I didn't know the meeting was. It was the Thompson Institute, and Roy and Nola had donated 14 million to the Thompson Institute to get it off the ground. So here's the opening ceremony for the Thompson Institute. Greg Hunt flew up from Melbourne, and Andrew Wallace made sure I was sitting at the table with Greg Hunt and Roy and Nola Thompson. So Roy said, so where you at with this thing you want to build? You posted me. And I said, oh, I've got the drawings in my pocket. So I pulled them out. We had a look, and he's showing his wife. And he said, have you got anything out of this bloke over here? Pointing to Greg Hunt. And I said, well, we're going upstairs to have a chat after brekkie. So it was then that it started the ball rolling with Greg Hunt. Anyway, I come back down after that, and Greg Hunt said, look, yeah, I think we can help you, but leave it with me. And I come out, and Roy and Nola Thompson were walking out, and they said, oh, how'd you go with old mate? And I said, well, yeah, he's committed to helping us. He goes, oh, great. Have you got a business card? So I gave old Roy my card. He turned to his wife, Nola, and at least something I'll take to my grave, and said, Dales, we just bought this guy's business card for $1 million. And I just went, excuse me? He said, well, mate, you got to do the project. You need the money. So come around Monday, I'll write you a cheque. So I gave Nola a hug and a kiss, and he said, you're not kissing me. And I said, bloody oath I am. So I hugged and kissed him. So we went around Monday, and sure enough, he's old school. Here's the manila folder on the desk, and here's the old checkbook. Who do you want it made out to? Oh, our charity, NDeD. Righto, NDeD, here's $1 million. See you later.
Wow.
So we banked it, and the rest is history. We built it, and my wife and I moved to site then in the old 4-bedroom home with our granddaughter, and I project managed the build. And we got a local builder, Ben Murphy at the time, on board, and he did it at cost, open book at cost. And it was an amazing project to do. My brother had a boiler making shop at the time. He got involved and did all the steel work for me. Other brother had a sandblasting and painting set up. He sandblasted and painted it for us. Son-in-law had a carpeting business. He did the carpets. So it became a family as well as coastal community, bloody feel good opportunity
absolutely.
and outcome. It was sensational. It was one of the best projects I've ever had anything to do with. It was the feel of it every day. People would turn up, and if it was a new tradie on site, do you know what this is for? Nah, I'll tell you. So, and and they go, like a crane hire bloke turned up on site. I never met him, and he owned the company, and I told him, and he said, "Oh, I'm in there, and I'll provide the crane hire for free." I didn't know the story. Okay, great. So, it was that sort of work environment, which was absolutely sensational. So we built that. And then we left that with the Butterfly Foundation to run because we knew that was stage one. That was a residential 90-day stay. And then we moved on to the day program house. But getting back to, that check for $2 million, Andrew Wallace said, he was in Canberra and he said, get on a plane and come down. We want to do the announcement about this money. And I went, great, okay. So I jumped on the plane and went down, went straight into his office. And he said, take a seat. It's not about the 2 million. I said, what do you mean? He said, we're about to announce 70 million. Of what? He said, well, Greg Hunt and the ministers, we all agree every state in Australia should have one of what you're doing. So we're committing $70 million to make this happen. So
wow.
I was flabbergasted. And of course he goes, right, come on, we're out in front of the cameras. So I'm immediately in front of the cameras with this announcement of 70 million. I thought it was going to be 2. No, not that it came to us, obviously. It went to the States then. And now Australia's got 5. So from, when they say little things, big things grow, well, it's
certainly do.
Now it's an amazing outcome. When Australia's got 5, that started from a discussion in our house at our table with locals and friends to where it is now. It is so rewarding.
That story is like mind-boggling, like just way over the top, mind-boggling, that whole story. When you think about it, where what's happened is you've got a family is going through tragedy, trauma, heartache, everything that's going on that you can't work out and you can't get any help in the country. So you get somebody's with a little bit of passion and desire and pushes this, and obviously I'm oversimplifying it, but basically from there, you've got help around the whole country in every state and money from the federal government, like lots of money from the federal government to go and implement this. That is, I don't know if you've sat back and looked at that, I'm sure you have, but that is an incredible, incredible achievement for you, but also I know you don't think about your thoughts about how many people can we help and how can we help them. And that is absolutely phenomenal. I'm blown away. That's amazing.
Thank you. And I suppose, Kingsley, getting back to how do you handle it as a parent, that was my way of handling it too, to get in and make change and stop whinging about it. Get in, pull your big pants up and get amongst it, So that's become my life now. That is me. My wife will tell you 7 days a week, but I'll try and make it 6. That's me. That's my life. I'm out of bed at early hours and you're answering emails and calls and whatever. Then you're down at the charity house because there's so much more happening that we can get into, actually.
Can you go over, because we are getting, time-wise, we're getting up there, unfortunately, but can you go over a little bit, because I know there's another 2 stages to this, and there's a whole bunch of other stuff going on, but there's another 2 stages that you've put together, you've seen a need for to make this work effectively.
Yeah, well, obviously the NDeD House of Hope, it's when we got out of the residential, we actually pulled the $1 million back from the project that Roy and Nola Thompson gave us, and that allowed us to buy the property at Woombye for our charity. It's in our charity's name. And it was a 9-bedroom home on 3 acres. So we converted we lived there, actually. We've been gypsies. We lived there while we set that up, and our granddaughter was there. And now that's operated by the team on a daily basis. We've moved out. and finally got a house back to ourselves. But yeah, that's where our lived experience ladies operate, and the bedrooms are converted to support rooms. And we get allied health now come into the space because it is such a large space, and the 3 acres is a peaceful park. So we get allied health now come into the space, who bring in their own clients. So it's become a mental health stop. For a lot of different things. It's no longer just about eating disorders. It's primarily about eating disorders there, but it's bringing in a lot of other allied health specialists who work in other mental health fields that it all crosses over. So it's a fantastic experience to be there on a day when you see that ebbing and flowing, and everybody utilising that space to get support for a lot of different reasons. But then when we were living there setting that up, directly across the road is a 10-acre block of land, and this is the universe continuing to work and deliver. There's an old couple there, and he used to call me Blake, and one day, Blake, we're moving out, come and have a beer, have a chat. We're moving up north. There's a 2-story brick home on that 10 acres. We don't want to go to market. We'll get a valuation opposite your charity. If you think you can use it and you meet the valuation, it's yours. So again, I went home and said to my wife, we haven't got the money, but all we do in the super, we could use it. Yeah, okay. So we used our super, we bought the 10 acres. And then we had the vision of, well, let's develop a short-term accommodation village here. So that, because we had so many people coming to us for support and yet couldn't afford to stay on the coast or couldn't find anywhere to stay to get support. So then we went to the LNP. Well, we went to the LNP government prior to the state election and said, this is what we want to do. And they said, right, if we get elected, we'll commit 1.9 million to help you make it happen. Because I said, here's a partnership. We've used our money to buy the land. We're asking you to commit just as much to build this village. And how I made the power to that is too, there's a company at Pimpamar called eSwave. They get kids off the street, get them into a Cert 1 certificate, and they assemble these tiny homes. So we partnered with them and said to the LNP, how can you not support this? You're getting kids off the street, they're getting skilled up. That's what you want to do, stop the crime. And these homes are coming to us to support people. And we partnered with another organisation who works in the domestic violence space. So we sold that story and built it. And April the 1st, it opened its doors. And when April the 1st it opened, David Christophilly came up to open it. April the 2nd, it was full.
Wow.
So now we've got this beautiful pathway of people finishing the residential stay at Wandinerida, now coming to get the second stage of support, and that's in the village from our charity directly across the road. So it's all linking together beautifully. But on that 10 acres too, another guy came and saw me and said, I love what you're doing. I had this community produce garden down in Inverell in New South Wales. I'd like to reinvent it here on the coast. I said, right, how much land do you need? So we worked out 2,500 square metres. I said, we marked it out, and I ended up renting it to his organisation for $10 a year. Unfortunately, his organisation ran out of funds and they stopped the program in December. But I said, look, this is too good a program to fold. It's what it does is insane. So we took the guy on ourselves, and he's on our payroll, and he now works with NDeD. And these community produce gardens, we get a bus of kids, disadvantaged youth, come in to work the gardens with him 3 days a week. And in the time that it's been going, it's donated 2.8 tonne of produce to Urban Angels here on the coast. And Urban Angels deliver 15,000 meals a month back to community.
Wow.
So for the last 3 years, Urban Angels have been coming to our House of Hope delivering meals to people that we support. And now they deliver and go down to the property and pick up the produce and take it back to the kitchen. And then you've got the disadvantaged youth coming in to see that and to feel it. And they're getting a hell of a lot of reward for it because they can see that they've nurtured this product to the picking stage, and they're actually there handing it over to Urban Angel. So it's a beautiful story. It works so wonderfully well, and there's more to come.
That's
it ain't there yet.
I am blown away, absolutely blown away. And it has to be pointed out that this sort of thing doesn't just happen. This only happens when someone's got a vision, someone's got a passion, someone's got a lot of guts to do what you've done and prepared to take a risk and put out there. And the funny thing is that all the way through, you've done this for other people. It hasn't been about you. And you can see that in the story. And that is just absolutely amazing, the difference. And now the full circle. And I think this is quite funny that you got people with eating disorders, and now part of what you're doing is actually producing food to help people that way.
Exactly right, Kingsley. And that's a good point. And it's a slow introduction for somebody who's got food phobia, if you want to label it that. And what we find is our team will do cooking days. And then, you know, some of them will go, well, no, I can't do that, but I might sit and watch. Yeah, okay. Well, and then they get involved in the chat. And they might be doing a bit of artwork while the cooking's going on, but they're involved in the chat. And then next week, you see them up there cutting the veggies. And you go, oh, okay, you're getting closer. And then they're still not partaking in it, but they're preparing the food. Now they can actually go down and pick it themselves. So they can be part of all that process and still not have to face the phobia until they're ready. So, you know, they're getting more comfortable and familiar with it, and they can see the benefit it's giving others. And it's a slow process, but then they're actually sitting down and having meals with the team. Beautiful to watch. Absolutely so fulfilling and rewarding to see.
And what a way to introduce that, such a subtle, gentle, easy way of introducing that whole thing without any pressure.
Yeah, and again, that comes from the lived experience side from the team, that they were there, so they know you can't fast track this. You've got to take it slowly, step at a time, baby steps. Sure, you don't want to do that today? That's fine. Just sit and do whatever you want to do. Do some art or whatever. Do a bit of yoga, or at least you're here in the surrounds. And then some days, some of the days they're not booked into a program, but some people will turn up and just wander around the peaceful park and spread a blanket and read a book, because that's their connect space. That's their place where they don't feel judged, and they know they're safe there. So again, it's a beautiful thing to witness. I just feel privileged to be on this journey. It's really changed my life. It's changed who I am and what I am. I relate to a bit of an onion. I've had to peel myself way back, get all the layers off, to really get to the grit of who I am, and then rebuild myself, you know, through this journey. It's where it takes you.
That is a really, really important point. And I think what you said that, and a lot of people, until you've actually lived through something like this, you probably don't fully understand that. Now you say it's a real privilege for you to be able to have gone through that and be able to do this for other people now. And I think when it gets to that point, I think you've made it to a certain level that very few people actually get to. And I think people who are going through hard times or interesting phases, or whether it's trauma stuff or eating disorders or whatever, when you can actually get through that and understand there is a purpose behind all this, if I can go through enough and come out the other end and see that you can have the privilege of then going through and helping other people because you get it and you know what's needed out there for other people. Yeah,
totally. It's certainly, you know, I even get some of my own family going, you know, when are you going to retire from this? And I go, I'll be doing this till they put the lid on, because it has become my life, our life, you know. It is, I can't imagine doing anything else. You know, like I see friends and families, overseas trips or on, you know, fishing trips or whatever, and I used to get envious about, oh God, I'm here doing this, they're out there doing that. But I know I can still go and do that, but they can't do this. And that's where I feel privileged, because of where I've been, the journey I've been on. I'm experiencing something that they won't in their life to this degree, but I can still go and dabble in that. So that's why I feel privileged. Yeah.
I think, Mark, you've actually summed up the essence of this podcast in what you've just said. You've summed it up better than what I ever could.
Well,
That's
thank you.
exactly what it's all about. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming and sharing your story and your journey very vulnerably and authentically and what's happening. People who might want to get in touch with you, what's the best way they can do that?
Yeah, look, our website is NDeD, ended.org.au. And there is a mobile number on there. That's the charity number. But I don't mind giving my number out because, yeah, I'm here for people that are lost. So
Love
my
that.
number is 0407 592 932.
Wow. That's the heart of a person that's there to serve and help, without a doubt, right there. And follow you on Facebook, Instagram. How can people find you there?
Yeah, look, NDeD, we're a Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn personally as well, so you can find me on LinkedIn as Mark Forbes. NDeD has got their LinkedIn. So we're TikTok. NDeD is on TikTok as well. It took a while to work out if that was the journey, that path we wanted to be on, but our team have said let's give it a go. So so we're very easily to contact, that's for sure. And a lot
Awesome.
of
And I
channels
definitely
and
encourage
pathways.
people to do so, without a doubt. A question I always ask before at the end of the podcast, I have to ask, how would you say you create the life you want and leave a legacy that you're proud of?
I think, thinking back, and I was only saying this to someone the other day, I've been in business all my life since I was 20. I've never really worked for anyone, but except my father when I did my apprenticeship. But thinking back through all my journey in my businesses, if something wasn't working out, I would force it. I wouldn't listen to the voice inside telling me, just leave it. That's not going to work. I would force it to happen, and then later realize I shouldn't have done that. So what I've learned through this journey with this eating disorder, is to give it over to the universe. I mean, if someone said that to me 10 years, 11 years ago, I would go, yeah, right, whatever. But now I'm the greatest believer in letting it go to the universe. Okay, you come up with a creative idea and you find a bit of a blockage or a pathway that's changing it, let the universe work it out. Because a few months later, all of a sudden, this will come in, someone will come into your life, or some organisation, or something will happen, and that's the piece you were missing. I couldn't have forced it into place. The universe brought it to me. So I just let go now to the universe, whatever I have planned, and it works.
Awesome. Mark, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. That was brilliant. I'm sure everybody's learned a lot and gained a lot of insight, and just how to understand people a lot better, what to do, what not to do, how to deal with it. And if there's personal situations, please get help sooner rather than later, obviously, is definitely the way to go. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time and obviously everything that you are doing for so many people, and obviously a massive team behind you as well. It's not just you. There is a massive team. We do need to acknowledge that.
Oh, fantastic team, yeah. Yeah, I'd be lost without them, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Mark, thank you so much. Have a fantastic day.
Thanks very much, Kingsley. Appreciate the opportunity.